Breath, Power, and Shamanism with Brandon Powell. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent Podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent Podcast, and we are coming to you not live from the 10x10x10 Tangent Cube of Science, where we are nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. So I got a couple things I've been meaning to say these things, and I keep forgetting. The main one is that the people are asking about this. Sometimes we have to shift our publishing schedule. So we always try to publish one episode a week. For a long time, we were publishing them on, Wednesday, and then it was Tuesday, and then it was Monday. But now it's shifted to Thursday. So you can expect the new episodes sometime around noon, our time on Thursday. So noon Central on Thursdays. That gives us time, because this, especially with this time of the year, like Kyle and I are usually trying to record everything on Mondays, but it doesn't always work. So if our publishing schedule was Monday, but we missed the Monday recording opportunity, then the shows are late, and then people freak out. So the idea is that if we don't make Monday recording, we have Tuesday and Wednesday before we need to publish on Thursday. So that's the goal. So publishing schedules now are on Thursdays. And so going on from that, we're recording this one early. Yeah. So we got a guest coming in. He'll be here later. He isn't here yet. So Kyle and I are doing this first segment without him, but it's Brandon Powell. And look forward to that. I think it's going to be a fun episode. Obviously, we haven't done it yet, so I don't know what to say about it. This is not one of the times where we're recording the first segment after we've already done the interview. So the last episode was a listener communication, so we caught up on all the emails. I mean, there's more coming in, but we won't tackle any of those today. But we do have a one-up box, and we have space weather news.
Oh, yeah. And I have a brief update real quick on the album.
Oh, yeah.
Just wanted to mention again, it is available for the early release is available on Patreon at patreon.com/$50 Dynasty. It's $12 a month. But it will be released for free on the 21st of June. And so if you sign up before the first of the month, you will then be charged another $12 on the first of the month, just so you know.
Yeah.
Just to be aware. And then at some point after the release, probably like the day of the release on the 21st of June, or maybe the day after, I'll make some extra tiers in Patreon where people can do like $1 or something, something small.
Yeah.
But right now, the only tier is $12 because it is basically for the early access to the album.
Right.
And we've had a bunch of people signing up, and it's great. Thank you so much to everybody who has signed up for that. It feels awesome. And, there's people are making comments in there and stuff, and that's been great. I've been trying to do my due diligence and read all of them.
Gotta read them all.
And also the album artwork is in there, and we'll be dropping some more stuff in there before the release. So just want to let you know about that.
Cool.
And then,
well, that was a rock and roll update.
Yeah, it was.
Excellent.
All right, rock and roll update. Okay, space weather news from spaceweather.com. Waiting for the CME. A coronal mass ejection, or CME, expected to sideswipe Earth's magnetic field on May 28th, has still not arrived. No problem, a geomagnetic storm happened anyway. Unrelated to the CME, a solar wind stream sparked 12 hours of G1 class storming on May 27th and 28th. Meanwhile, the CME might still be en route, moving more slowly than expected, so stay tuned. Also, there were more auroras in the U.S., over the Mackinac Bridge in Michigan. This display was caused by a co-rotating interaction region, or a CIR, which hit Earth on May 27th. Co-rotating interaction regions are transition zones between slow and fast-moving streams of solar wind. They contain shock waves that often do a good job of sparking auroras. This particular CIR caused a G1 class storm on May 27th. A fast stream of solar wind arriving right behind it kept the storm going into the early hours of May 28th. So, current conditions, solar wind speed is 490.5 kilometers per second. The density is 7.51 protons per cubic centimeter. Sunspot number is 69. The neutron count is 5.9% above the space age average, so that's going up again. I wonder if that's related to the number of sunspots. I don't know. Planetary K index is 2, quiet, but the 24-hour max is rated at 5, which is stormy.
All right.
And there's your Space Weather News for Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. Yeah, that was the other thing. Excuse me, I've been having some allergy problems. Yeah, we're doing this show on Saturday, so it's before the end of the world.
That's right.
So if you're listening to this on Thursday...
The end of the world has already happened.
Yeah, it's already happened, and we may not actually be recording another show after this.
That's right.
So
That's right.
don't forget to, watch the sky on Monday night.
Yeah, Sunday and Monday night
is
when we should be checking for the
Look for the
SW3 comet stream meteors.
Yeah,
and possible end of the world bolides.
Yeah, look for if you see a end of the world bolide, you can check to see, did it radiate from Hercules?
Right.
The Hercules.
We were out, actually, yes. We were out stargazing last night, and we identified where Hercules is in the sky, so we know where to look for the radiant. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that you're going to see it appear from that spot, but you can, if you see one near the horizon, for example, you just follow the line back up towards, the center of the sky or wherever that line goes across the sky, and it may... If it runs past the constellation of Hercules, then it was a Herculid meteor.
That's right. Hopefully there will be enough to where you can see the radiant.
The radiant, that would be
great.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping it turns out.
I would love to see the radiant before I die.
And of course, those of you listening after the end of the world already know what happened, but we don't yet. Could have been a dud.
Okay, crypto. Bitcoin is $29,024.19, and Ethereum is definitely lower, $1,796.41.
All right.
So
still a buyer's market.
it is. Buyer's market.
And all the crypto millionaires are eating mac and cheese.
That's right.
Macaroni and cheap cheddar melted together.
All right. We have a one-up box. Yes. So we have it came with a book. I'm going to read part of it. Because it says on here, read first, which I did read the whole thing, but I've marked out part of it to read. So it says, "Hi, Snake Bros and family. Love the show. Finally got caught up. Took the normal route to snakehood as so many, Randall and Graham and Joe Rogan years back, then Geocosmic Rex, then Cosmo, then on to Brothers of the Serpent. I started listening to Snake Bros at the latest episode and soon realized I'd have to go find the back catalog and catch up. So I went back to episode number 2 and am now caught up. Now I'll go back and start Cosmo at the beginning again. I've also listened and supported Grimerica for years, as well as Mysterious Universe. Oh, yes, both excellent shows. I was trying to get to a contact at the cabin, but never could make it due to medical issues in my family. It was inevitable that I would have found the Snake Bros eventually. Now, on to the main reason for my email. My dad used to always say, it's okay to be open-minded, just not so much that your brains fall out. My dad was a Navy fighter pilot in World War II in Korea, and afterwards worked as a flight instructor, air traffic controller, and flight services rep for the civil service. A few years before he passed away, he told us when he was an air traffic controller in the late 50s at what is now Atlanta International Airport, the civil service tracked an object following the coastline of the eastern USA all the way down from Maine to Florida, moving at many times the speed of conventional aircraft at the time, several thousand miles per hour. And he also said, quote, there were many upset and traumatized people that day, unquote, because the object shot into space and disappeared after being tracked for over 1,000 miles.
Wow.
He traveled through Persia and the Middle East, including north of the Mediterranean Sea after the war, and saw many fabulous megaliths. I remember him telling me when I was a young teenager that, quote, Fred Flintstone could not possibly have built the things I have seen, unquote. Or in snake vernacular, butt flaps could not possibly be responsible. He knew we didn't have the whole story.
That's really cool.
That is great. UFO report and megaliths in the Middle East and Persia. Okay, I'm going to skip a bunch here about where she trapped her family into watching a long 3-hour doom porn presentation that she gave, which she sent us printed out, a complete booklet of printed sheets from. And go to the end of this. She says, I know this probably won't make the show, and that's okay. I am hardly up to competing with the many incredibly creative and entertaining emails read on the show. I am rapidly earning old lady status, and I really don't care. However, you two and yours do not have to stay off my lawn. As a matter of fact, I would like to extend an open invitation. If you are ever in Southwest Georgia, please let me know. I will endeavor to meet up and buy you a meal and or beers, or you can stop by the house and sit on the screen porch and drink sweet tea and or beer. I keep both handy and would love to provide you a place to relax and chill for a bit. I even have an extra space in an RV, so there's plenty of room, and we can go to the nearby Colomaki Indian Mounds, local Carolina Bays, or maybe even to the Georgia Guidestones if you want. Just let me know so I can get time off from the old salt mine. Call me anytime. Actually, it's better to text first. There's so much more I'd like to add, but you have stuff to do, and so do I. So thanks for putting yourselves out there and sharing with us. Love you. Mean it. Always will. Yours truly, from Laura.
Oh, thank you, Laura.
Lala C, I think, in the Discord.
Oh,
thank you. Yes, and we got an address and a phone number. And she says, hope you enjoy the treats from South Georgia. Snakes!
All right, thanks. Yeah, there's...
Sorry, she says, no beers in this box.
Oh. Disappointed. No, I'm oh!
Whoa.
Sorry, the box pushed that button, not me. Yeah, so she sent some preserves and peach preserves, red pepper jelly, mayhaw jelly, which
doom porn and food,
some steak sauce, and a box of chocolates. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
And thanks for the invitation. That's
yes,
very kind.
the invitation. I do want to go see the Georgia Guidestones and some Indian mounds. We used to live in central western Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old Columbus.
Yep. All right. If there's nothing else, I think that's all we were going to cover in the first segment. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention this about the rock and roll, is that we will be people. Jeff in the Discord brought up T-shirts, merch for the band, and yes, we are working on merch. We have a lot of artwork, and so we'll be throwing some of that up. We have old T-shirt designs, and then we'll be putting the new album art on T-shirts as well, along with our logos and just whatever else we come up with. That is forthcoming.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we're trying to get ready for the actual release on the 21st. So, right now there's the pre-release, and we're still in the process of getting these other things ready. Vinyl is also in the works, but it's going to be 8 months before that's done. CDs will eventually be available for print on demand for people who want to use those ancient machines. Yeah.
That's right. So there will be merch, and so that means we'll build a $50 Dynasty, probably a TeePublic page.
Yeah, I think so.
And an art page, but also I'll put most of the Dynasty merch also on the Brothers of the Serpent TeePublic page, so people can get to them from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Cool.
So stay tuned for our conversation with Brandon Powell and the Wim Hof Method and shamanism and healing and everything else.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we do have Brandon Powell in studio. Finally came out to visit us here in the Hill Country. Welcome, dude. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Cube.
Stoked to be here. Like I said, I've always envisioned what is this place like, and now that I'm here, I get to know where no one else who hasn't been out here, you know.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
It's great. Love it.
Yeah, man.
Happy to be here, man. The hospitality's been amazing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you out here, and of course, we've been doing these trips with you, and so you come out to these events with us, with the guys from Grimerica, with Randall, with Matheson, and not only are we studying what they do, but you're also giving classes basically on some of the stuff you do. Like the two of which I'm familiar with at this point would be the breathing, right? So we do this every morning. We do the breathing, you do this breath work, right? And then there's the cold bath. So do you want to start from there, sort of tell people a little bit about your background, how you got into this, and then we'll kind of go through what all of this means to you, and why you do it?
Well, it's layered for sure. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but you could break it down and make it simple and say like body, mind, spirit kind of practices that I've been interested in my whole life. And it's really been a continuous journey, because these practices are highly integrated into the way that I live, In other words, I kind of orient myself around the things that I do. With the cold water or the breath work, these are practices that I've been really involved with for the last 7 years or so. And, from a standpoint of being a coach and a trainer, I utilize them for myself, for my clients. So that was the practical reason for getting involved in this stuff. Though, I mean, at first it's always, I'm looking for the direct experience. This is that kind of thing that's led me in everything that I do. I need to know that it's real, that it works, and then I can integrate it into my lifestyle, whether it be, like I said, professionally or spiritually.
So part of this is like a personal journey for you.
Absolutely. It's completely that, and then I've figured out ways that I can monetize it so that I can continue to move forward.
Yeah, well, that's what we're doing with this podcast.
Exactly. Exactly.
We're not really monetizing, but a little bit. But yeah, so what about the breath work? Like, is it an ancient practice? Like, this is what you say, right? This is an ancient thing?
Well, breath is pretty ancient.
I mean, yeah, we have been doing it since the beginning.
Yeah.
It's totally true.
What came first, in the beginning, there was the word. Really, there was the breath.
Oh, yeah. You got to breathe in before you can speak a word.
That's right. The languages, I believe, are very important, for sure. But the breath is, it's this amazing pulse of life in and out, and that it's the forward motion. So it's so profound yet so simple, right?
Yeah.
And that's that kind of
do
contrast.
it all day, every day.
Right. And never think about it.
Right.
Right.
It's
but
automatic.
As soon as it's not there, you're going to think about it.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I teach jujitsu, multiple times a day throughout the week. And in jujitsu, we strangle each other. That's part of the practice,
Oh yeah.
I mean, we're strangling. We're taking.
I just realized this, like, you're teaching the breath work and then you practice strangling each other. That's great. I never put those two together.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's and that's the balance, when you train. So for me, I got into jiu-jitsu because I was really interested in the Gracie family. They're a fascinating family, fight family, and they produced a lot of great champions. One of their particular, masters is a guy named Rickson Gracie. And Rickson was really ahead of his time. There's a great documentary, you could find it on YouTube. It's called Choke. and it's all about Rickson Gracie's life and his training methods. Very inspirational documentary, and he was integrating, all this type physical training that was beneficial for the jujitsu, but it was unique. Whether it be the various types of conditioning that he was doing, or going out and doing like yoga practices. He was extremely flexible. He could, strong guy, fast guy, had it all. And he was doing this before anybody, he was really there was I would say a lot of what is current in martial arts right now is modeled around his family and a lot of his approaches. So he was just, in the last 100 years, he was, one of the most important figures in martial arts for sure. Wow. And he was doing things like he's cool, man. He's a surfer, he's very, charismatic, kind of like I said, he's just the right character at the right time, who has all the things kind of come together for him. And, at least seemingly, everybody has their struggles. But with him, he was doing these things that were so unique, and I just wanted to explore them, man. It just seemed like, I don't know, cool. At the end of the day, I was just like, that looks cool, man. I want to try it. Let's see how this goes. Well, if this badass is doing it, you know what I mean? Maybe there's some benefit to it, And he was exposing himself to cold temperatures, cold water, and then talking about the physiological benefits of feeling just like so alive, and that's one of the best things that you get from the cold, especially initially when you start training with it, is you get this rush of adrenaline, rush of, dopamine, 250% increase in dopamine. If you can sit in the cold, get adapted, meaning calm, breath-wise, and then let the body sort of relax in that space for just a couple of minutes, you get a 250% dopamine increase. It's tremendous for all kinds of things. Like, for instance, I just did a big retreat today, and I had a guy that I talked to for a while, and he was explaining to me how he overcame addictions with this type of thing, wow. Because you're really experimenting with chemicals, and you are, there's only a few things that give you that kind of rush, at that level. And so it is a very beneficial way to approach this thing. And you're doing it through this, idea of a little bit of courage, a little bit of connection to nature. It's all of these things coming together in this nice alchemy when you utilize the cold. And so how does that affect jujitsu? Does it make you any better at the skill? Not really, but it certainly gives you a charge and an energy and an ability to recover. And, all of those things absolutely play into jujitsu. So, to be flexible, you don't have to be the most flexible guy to do jujitsu. You don't have to be the strongest guy. It's a very technical art. So it's really better to be an artist at the skill set. But all of these attributes will lend to a better athlete. I mean, I'm sure you guys can imagine that. So those were the reasons that I initially got into it. What's kept me in it is multiple things. I would say looking at why other people are into it, and seeing that it really, you could look at it like optimization. You want to be a biohacker or whatever, but there are also people who have terminal cancer. And they decide that they want to approach something like this because they want to feel some control and some power and some strength in the final moments of their life. And I only, bring this up anecdotally because I've been with people in that experience. And so to see that kind of, I don't know what it is, like a desire or something to just feel empowered, and to approach something that's not comfortable, right? Something that's going to challenge them even in a moment like that.
And it's also doing something like, it's like primal, like having that, I don't know, that conflict with another force, just like so direct
that you're actually trying to do a dance with.
Yeah.
So there's a taming of it. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. I love the way I heard Joe Rogan say this about jujitsu one time. It was like, it was something like the jujitsu is like a language that you learn with your body, and then you're getting into an argument with another one, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you have to you have to learn this sort of alphabet or this language, and the more words you learn, the better you can argue.
That's a
debate
great
somebody else.
You can debate, yeah, exactly. I love that. It's like
that's why that guy is who he is, man. He just knows how to put it. No, it's true though. Here's the thing. You don't necessarily have to you don't have to have the most complex alphabet, but you need to know what you know really well.
yeah, okay.
You know what I mean?
cool.
So you don't have to be the greatest writer to put out an awesome book. You know what I mean? Like there are, I guess that's sort of subjective, but ultimately it's really just about knowing what you know and knowing it well, and that comes through training and discipline and certain factors that have to be there in order to accomplish that feat. I'm really lucky in that I teach jujitsu and that I do this Wim Hof thing, and because of where I'm at with that, and how I was a little bit ahead of the curve with a lot of people who've gotten into it, being maybe the first jiu-jitsu guy who was out there teaching this stuff, I've been able to really work with like the highest level athlete. I've got some workshops coming up over the next couple of weeks where I'm really excited to be with even, the most up and coming guys, even these guys who are barely 20 years old, who are just cream of the crop.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
so, it's like I say, man, everything I like, I keep getting older, but it stays the same. You know what I mean? So it's great to be able to watch things grow though and change and become something. And jiu-jitsu, believe it or not, it's the most ancient martial art, but it's really the only martial art that's still truly evolving at this point in time. I mean, you can. You could say like fusion arts like MMA are evolving, and they are, but jiu-jitsu is like its own thing. It's a singular art, but people are all the time still adding things, flair to it, like new school, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's really cool. It's really, really cool. You can never get it all in one life. It's a deep, deep art. You know what I mean? And that's why you're jumping into the ocean when you do it, and it's very real. It's you have to have a partner. You have to have that camaraderie, and it creates great friendships, and great rivalries, but it's awesome in that way. So yeah, it's lifestyle for me, and that's really what I think anybody who does it would tell you. And so all of these things just fit into the lifestyle. Like if you want to be good at jiu-jitsu, you speak the language, and that goes on and off the mat. You know what I mean? So you need to live I think everything that I do can be, and Matheson really helps me understand this better too, but everything's oriented towards the higher self. Everything's oriented towards just wanting to be a better person. And jiu-jitsu really gives you that if you let it. You know what I mean? Because it tests you. But it also, there is this, on the other side of that workout, kind of like we were talking about the other side, right? When you break through, you feel good. You just feel good. Like I did something that was worthwhile, and it made me feel good. And it's primal. It's connected to something.
I kicked that guy's ass.
Yeah.
Now I feel good.
Which is awesome for your confidence.
Yeah.
When you didn't think you could kick that guy's ass.
Sure, that's right.
You know what I mean? And the thing about it is, he's okay with you kicking his ass. And you're okay if he kicks your ass.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you don't have that reciprocating thing, and you can like slap five, high five, and then the next second you're like, you're choking the dude, you're strangling this guy, and he's like, it's all right, dude. I can't tell you, you're constantly like, trying to hurt somebody and then apologizing kind of along the way, where it's like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. You know what I mean? But it's tremendous. I can't imagine my life anymore without it. It's one of those things. My kids do it. It's, and that's one thing about martial arts, especially in art like Jiu-Jitsu. It's a very family-oriented style of thing. Like, you can't, it's wrestling, it's grabbing, it's hugging, it's playing, it's, it's like all these things.
Roughhousing.
Yeah, it's roughhousing.
Yeah.
I definitely want to get Soul into it. I've been talking to Laura about this for a long time. Like, that would, I don't care if he branches off into other stuff, but the first thing I want him to learn is that fighting style.
Yeah, it's the most practical one, and it's great for
And
your
I'm going to
brain.
have to learn it with him, because I'm going to need to strangle him sometimes.
You don't
I need to
want
be able
him
to stop him
throwing
from
you across the house.
strangling me.
Yeah, well, it's been, I mean, this has been talked about by various people, but I mean, there's a real neuroplasticity that goes on with jiu-jitsu, because if you want to keep getting better, you keep just learning more, adding tools to the toolbox. So you already have a fundamental understanding, but you can add things in ways that are gonna, make you use your foundation, and at the same time push you to learn something a little new. And you're constantly doing that in jiu-jitsu. So you start off a little slow, but then quickly it starts to snowball, because you're putting these pieces together. And so it's a game in that way, but you can always get better until the day you die. And the thing is when as you're getting older, as your body's changing, as things are changing, your game is changing, your mind is changing, the way you approach it, the way you approach energy, you learn path of least resistance. Jiu-jitsu is so connected to the idea of like the ebb and flow of energy in the universe, and in the breath, in whatever, right?
Yeah.
This thing that the first thing that pushes you in jiu-jitsu is the breath. So it's like, not only is the guy trying to strangle you, but he's also laying on top of you, and you don't know how to get him off of you. And you're breathing really hard, and you can't catch your breath, and just the weight of the guy, and he's sweating on you, and there's all these things, and you're trying to figure it out. It can be so overwhelming, and then for some reason we go, man, I loved that. It was great. Let's do that again. See you tomorrow, And that pressure, though, that whole thing, it really does, it really does test your breath in the beginning. So when you can get your breath sort of under wraps, then you can start to progress. So breath training is a tremendous tool, specifically for an art like jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu is, like I said, it's the most primal form of fighting. It's two, primates grabbing each other and then trying to, like, I know this is how you breathe. I'm going to take that and end it, and so, but now we've gotten all super technical, like, oh, I'm going to drag your arm this way and then I'm going to pull you this way. And it's, we've turned it into an art, martial arts.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Like, when you see good martial arts done, it's really pretty. It's beautiful violence, as Rogan would say, or somebody, it's beautiful. The exchanges, it's just like, I don't know, it's like any physical art form that's really beautiful, like dance or gymnastics or anything like that.
It has a geometry that ties into like natural processes, because the whole body is like, it follows phi and all that stuff. So when you see it well done, and people are taking advantage of geometric, like leverage and all kinds of stuff, I agree. Yeah. You can see it being like somewhat like a dance, smooth and flowing, and then suddenly, bam, someone's on the floor dying, and you're like, yeah, that was
that was awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah. And then there is like, it's that balance too of like, how far can you push it till it's just a travesty, right? We're going to take it right up to the edge there, don't bite him in the nose, but it's other than that, And so the fighting in jiu-jitsu, when you're doing it, you can basically train it at 100% almost every day. I mean, people are going to disagree with me on that, but what I mean by that is you can train it very intensely every day because we remove the punches and the kicks. So it's just a game of grappling. And grappling, without taking hard strikes to the head, that allows you to be able to train all the time.
Right.
So when you can train grappling at 100%, that gives you quite an advantage against somebody who never trains martial arts, right? And I mean, it's literally like learning how to use a firearm or something properly and using it daily.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to develop a real skill set, and it's something that's you can utilize without anything. It's just built into you. So it's very symbiotic in nature, and it absolutely enhances your reflexes. It enhances your judgments on various things, like how you would hope that it would. I utilize it for those reasons. I want to have better judgment on the things I'm doing. I want to also, create longevity. One thing about martial arts practitioners, man, those guys, they'll hold out.
Yeah,
they'll live for a long time, man.
Yeah.
They really will. I mean, not everyone.
Yeah.
But you'll see it quite often in the community. Guys are around for a while, like, damn, look at that old guy, And it I think it speaks to that, and just a desire again to live that lifestyle.
Yeah, there always has been, like in my mind, there's been this sort of connection between, guys that are awesome at martial arts and sort of this like elevated, consciousness or some type of, like Zen, I've always associated it with like these types of things. Like they have some kind of, I don't know what it is, like, they're old wise men or something like that. Well,
it's better to be the warrior in a garden than the gardener in a war.
Yeah, exactly.
and that old, parable or whatever you want to call it, that this idea that
What about a farmer in a war?
No, it doesn't work out, man. Ask Genghis Khan. He crushed a lot of farmers, and the reason they did it is because they stayed nomadic fighters and, warriors basically on the steppe, in this brutal territory. And then you had the former warriors who became, farmers or started agriculture, and the, Genghis basically raised an army, and could just come through and just crush all of them.
Yeah,
enlightenment is the word I was looking for. Like the fighters, like the really awesome ones, seem like there's always been this association in my mind with like a form of enlightenment.
Well, I think it's because it's a spiritual quest for some. Some people just train because they want to be better killers. That's just the reason.
For sure.
But there are definitely people who come to it for one thing, like wanting to be a better fighter. That's really why I came to martial arts. I mean, it was just straight up, I wanted to learn how to fight well, and but it leads you somewhere. Mm-hmm. And that's
if you let it, yeah.
I think it's and that is the interesting. I don't know what you would call it, but it's like it leads you somewhere if you let it. And you let it because that's the right way to work the martial art.
Yeah, to get better at the martial art.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so they go hand in hand. That's kind of the thing that I've always thought. And it's I guess I don't know where I got that idea, but just from, I guess, maybe the way we would consume.
Bruce Lee, man.
Yeah.
All the cool movies. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. The cool movies.
And also in those martial art movies, the guy who teaches the new guy is like this ancient, bearded, like he's been up there for forever. And he's
the Taoist master.
Yeah,
right.
He just like he can flip the dude over with his finger or whatever, without even breathing hard.
And
he's also like
that speaks more to the principles, right? So in refinement, like we were talking about earlier, you are trying to always sharpen your sword, and so a sharper sword, you don't have to swing as hard.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And that's
So it's the idealism,
idea.
of the
Yeah,
art.
so it's never to say that a fight is going to be really easy, but it's just to say that you can find the path of least resistance, which means the cultivation of or the management of your energy. Yeah. So you don't allow somebody to take from you. It's the old Leonidas line, give to them nothing but take from them everything. You know what I mean? Like, so you don't want to give up too much energy. You want to be able to maintain that. And that when we have like long sparring sessions, which we do in our classes, and this is, again, why so many people approach jiu-jitsu, because they love this aspect of the training. We call it the rolling. And the rolling is the sparring, but we can do it for an hour or more. I used to have these long, multiple-hour rolling sessions with the right groups of people who are really into it. And, you're going to get much better during those times, obviously, and because it's really, you're practically applying the method, and that you can't train for that long and put that much into it without a management of energy. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a patience that's developed in jiu-jitsu because it's very reciprocal. It's very much a something that you want to borrow energy. You don't always want to put it out. The old Taoist saying the two fighters approached each other and nobody made a move. You know what I mean? Like, just stood there, because I'm not doing it first. You go. I want to see what you're going to do. And that kind of stuff always fascinated me, and the mysticism of martial arts explained is always my favorite kind of thing. It's like I want to be wowed by something and then figure it out. I think that's kind of like all the stuff I'm into. I like to be caught off guard, like, whoa, man, how do you do that? You know what I mean? And I even like it better when somebody did it to me and I really kicked my ass and made me realize, like, this is something real. I've been doing other stuff, but without this piece, I was missing something big. And then that opened like a fish to water. It was like, oh, we can train like this all the time. Like, oh man, like, and so through my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, it was just obsession. Like, oh, I can just do this all the time. You know what I mean? And then when we're done, we're just going to play video games of fighting. You know what I mean? I'm just going to practice fighting forever, And then you get around guys who are like world class when you think you're good. And then you get around somebody who's just like levels and you realize, like, holy shit, there are levels to this. Yeah. Like deep levels. Like I didn't realize you could be that much better than me. Damn. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's, that's the humility of it and the vulnerability of it. All of those things, exposing yourself to yourself like that is very healthy. I really think it's healthy. And so it leads to those places where you want to find stillness and find something that is even more profound because you recognize that you have to go inward.
Yeah. And if you get mad or your emotions get involved, you make bigger mistakes and stuff like so. It teaches you have to learn how to deal with that or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like post-training, I can't tell you how many people in traffic would have gotten some kind of berating, had I not had that. But it's all that energy's gone, man. And you're like, whatever, dude. You know what I mean? There's nothing to give in that sense. Like there's no emotion. Yeah. Which is great. If you suffer from emotionalism, like I do, so which is good to have if you want to be an artist. It's this weird thing, man. You need the emotions, but you don't want to be too emotional. So the real martial artist was sort of this, this, what do you call it? Like, somebody who approached many skill sets outside of fighting to temper the fighting nature. So you want to have the fighting skill set, but at the same time, you also want to have a good vocabulary. You want to be able to, have skill sets in many forms, like, you better be good in bed. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're a great fighter, but you suck at bed, I mean, what you got? You know what I mean? Like, that's not, it's like, it's better. It's better. And you want to, I don't know how to appreciate things. And that's one thing that I've known from real masters. Like, you get around guys who are awesome, and they have that depth. They have that depth where they're looking at all kinds of stuff, and somehow it all feeds into the thing.
Yeah, and in some ways, artists are that way.
Oh, 100%.
You get into one particular type of art, and it makes you pursue other types. And so if the martial arts is an art, and you're learning, you're having these eureka moments and gaining these skill sets, and then you apply yourself to some other type of art, like music or even painting and all that kind of stuff. So building stuff, I find that like when I see other people's art that's like awesome, it just makes me want to learn it, even though I may not have time to do it or whatever. I'm just
absolutely.
like, dang, dude, I want to learn how to do that.
Well, what is really cool is that just the attempts from a standpoint of like the benefits of doing something. I mean, it definitely feels better when you're really good at something, for sure, right? Because you can take things deeper, but just attempting. So let's say you have the gymnast who's good versus the person who just tries to do the cartwheel but can't really do it. Just the attempt of the cartwheel on our nervous system, on our physiology, is very rewarding. So just the attempt on things like that is really good. Now, I mean, there are, again, you realize there's depths to things and levels, but I think, you should go for things. I think you should be willing to try things, because if you don't expose yourself, you just can't know yourself. Yeah. You cannot, you can't really know what you're going to do. That's why all these things like getting into the cold water, they bring things right to the surface. It's like, okay, why do it, first off?
Yeah, I was too scared to do it last time. I didn't get in the cold water.
But yeah,
I'm gonna do it next time. But I demand some heat sources.
Yeah, well, we
nearby.
should. Yeah,
I like a fire.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we had that, man. We had a good time in Arizona.
Yeah,
Arizona was fun, right?
Yeah,
yeah. It'll get better. I think California's going to be awesome.
California's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that experience. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
And then we'll get up to I want to go Crater Lake.
Yeah,
we just go right in the lake.
Yeah,
it'll be freezing.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah,
100% the best way to do it is to do it in nature, commune with nature while you do it. There's no question about it.
Take a chainsaw out there and cut a hole in the ice.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, there are levels. I was showing.
Well, you've talked about the science of this a lot. You've studied this, right, with the Wim Hof stuff and like the things that it does to the body. I'd like to go through some of that,
please.
Yeah, let's get into that after the break.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna take a break.
We should take a break. Before we stop, though, let's explain to people. So we're playing your music.
That's right.
During the segment, so we're gonna give them a little longer to play, but this is the music in the breaks here is all from Brandon, and it's got like the chanting and the vocals and all this stuff that he does. It's really awesome.
Yeah, man. Thanks for bringing that.
Yeah,
thank you.
Let's listen to another one.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brothers of the Serpent podcast. And we are joined by Brandon Powell. And we were just talking about, let's talk a little bit about some of the science you've been looking into behind the, the breath work and the ice baths, the Wim Hof stuff.
Yeah, well, that was definitely part of the intrigue into his practice. And I'm very grateful for that practice because it's really added so much to, my ability to get in front of people and work with them. And the science is, it's fascinating, man. I mean, there's so many ways you can look at it, like what's happening when you're doing the breath work. What are the benefits of it? What's the long-term effects and yada, yada, yada. There's,
well, like some of the things you do, you'll tell people like some of the things he's done.
Yeah.
It's like, what are those? Like there are these like absolute crazy things that he's done that doesn't seem possible.
Yeah.
Like climbing Everest in shorts or something like that.
Right. So there's physical feats that seem, there's physical things. So in other words, like external things where he's, climbing a mountain in record time, doing things like maintaining oxygen saturation, utilizing a technique that is seemingly on paper maybe not so profound, but yet when you put it to action in the moment, fights off things like acute mountain sickness. It keeps people from
like the altitude
sickness.
Yeah.
Yep. So it keeps people balanced, and there is a real protocol on how to go about doing it that he's tapped into, that he's, I would say it's like part of it is like creating a structure around it. But then part of it is also borrowing from something that is just a natural occurrence and strengthening it. So it's turning something that, we do this with everything in, as artists, with our human form. Like if there's a way to turn it into an art form, we will. Like maybe like food, for instance, right? And with him, it was, I'm doing these things. I had the recognition of what I'm doing through, and this is, to me, the most important part. Like the science is cool because the science measures it, but what's even better is the presence of mind to know I can do these things because of a type of confidence of knowing the technique works. It's very much like Jujitsu. You know that it works, so you feel like you're willing to make the attempt. That this okay, I see something bad going down, I can jump in and help with my Jujitsu. That kind of thing. With him, it was like I have this feeling that I can take on all of these various challenges because I can, with my breath, master my fear. And that was ultimately what Wim was about, was mastering the fear with the breath. And that caught so many, swimming under ice for, on a single breath for 100 meters, right? Wim's got all kinds of crazy records. It could have been, he has one of my favorites is he rode a hot air balloon up, and between two hot air balloons, he climbed out and suspended himself by one finger like a mile above the earth in his underwear, and so he has the world's strongest finger, which he always shows off, right? And so and he loves it. He loves to show off the world's strongest finger. You can imagine which one it is, and so Wim's, things like that. And he would tell you that in a lot of ways it came from trying to overcome fear.
But so the breath is the fundamental basis of his of what he does?
Well, it was the thing that I think was, okay, so in any situation where you bring about that type of stress, let's say like getting into cold water, okay, which was where it all is born from. Getting into the cold water is going to create a specific breathing pattern.
Yeah.
You're going to get in you're going to have a hyperventilation reflex there.
Yeah.
And so you get into the cold and you start doing this. So you have to think about your breath if you want to master that moment. You have to at least be connected to it so that you can take the reins, because the breath will work you if you don't work it. And so if you master the breath under all kinds of various stresses, because these breathing patterns can come out in all kinds of different ways.
It's like midwives have known this for thousands of years.
Of course.
Of
course. Pregnancy is something I always talk about in all of my workshops, because I've witnessed it with my wife, and and we've worked the breath as a couple. They're, going into that situation or both situations, both pregnancies and both births, and to see how well it helped her, it was like amazing, man.
Wow.
The breath work is us just taking advantage of this natural process and trying to play with it,
So can you describe, when you get into cold water and your body has this natural, reflex reaction, what do you do to maintain control? How do you breathe, or how does it?
Sure.
What are you supposed to do?
So with that specific thing, you're going to have like I was saying, like a hyperventilation reflex, which when I say hyperventilation, I mean it in like an uncontrolled way. Okay. So there's two approaches within the method. The first one would be, let's go we'll go from backwards to front, because I'm saying that when you get into the cold, which means you're already trained, we'll talk about training in a second, but if you're already trained, you know that you're trying to de-escalate that hyperventilation response.
Okay.
And so you can do something as simple as focus on the exhale. Focus on the exhale,
smooth and long
and smooth, so that you're not.
Because
you're trying to now, basically control that autonomic response, and that's the Wim Hof method through and through. So what actually made it a method, the science of the whole thing, is that Wim was able to take an endotoxin injection, which is basically like injecting yourself with E. coli, and then the body has a response. Now, it's an empty, inert shell of a bacteria, so you're not really sick when you get the endotoxin, but your body thinks that it is.
Yeah.
So it goes into creating all the responses that your body would do naturally to combat this invader, right? Well, what Wim demonstrated was that he could take those responses offline. And basically, he could generate enough adrenaline in the system to suppress the inflammatory reactions of the endotoxin. So you're generating adrenaline through breathing in a specific way, basically convincing your body that it needs adrenaline. And when it's doing that, it opens up all these doors to tap into the mind into fight and flight, but in this totally calm, controlled way.
Oh, it's almost like a hypnosis.
But
like another form of hypnosis where you're having the fight or flight, but you're doing it in this calm, lucid state.
Absolutely.
Sort of,
yeah.
Wow.
And you're what we've demonstrated with the method is that within 30 minutes you can have peak adrenaline in the body. So within 30 minutes of the breathing, that's why I orient those workshop, our classes 30 minutes or so. We really push it.
Yeah.
Even if it's a longer session, it's really within that 30 minutes. I'm really trying to get everybody after it. And then, you've got it now. Now just go enjoy your day. It feels good. You primed the system. That's the way Wim always sort of understood it. It just makes you feel right. You're breathing good now, and do you need to do it every single day? Maybe not, but I do it every day, every morning straight out of bed. And on maintenance days, maybe I don't go super intense like I would if I felt like I really needed it. Like if I was preparing myself for something, or if, like Wim, he demonstrated being able to suppress these flu-like symptoms. And what we know now, man, after 10 years of research on the Wim Hof Method in one university in the Netherlands, that we can reduce flu-like symptoms with the Wim Hof Method by 85%.
Wow.
So engaging the breath when you start to feel bad, that's the time to lay down and start doing the breathing and try to bring the adrenaline online. Why? It's not to say that all inflammation is bad, but it's to say that your body quite often will overreact and sometimes underreact. But these like autoimmune diseases and dysfunctions quite often come from an overreactive system that's basically eating itself. And so what we're showing is that you can tone those systems.
Where do people go to learn how to do this?
On the internet, it's super easy. Everything's free. You can just jump on YouTube. How do I do the Wim Hof breathing? It's 30 breaths to a breath hold to a recovery breath. That's one round, and we start again. 30 breaths, breath hold, recovery breath. And you can get into understanding all the science through the WimHofMethod.com, or you can
But you
go on
teach
YouTube.
these classes too, right?
I do, man. I
Like
yeah.
you'll do it live with people like over the internet or whatever. They could come to your place or
So
something.
I was just, I mean, that's what I do, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much I'm teaching these classes all over. I used to be international up until the last couple of years, but I was, I'm all over the country right now teaching.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And it's, what's great is that people recognize the need for this type of thing. The method offers, I look at it like it's a cleansing process to the system, and it is. There's all kinds of science that backs that up, but it is like a bit of a purge on the system, meaning that if you have built up junk in your emotional body and your mental states, your physical states, that stuff will kind of come to light, and you can really clear out. And you see this in my workshops all the time. What I love is that I kind of bring an intense experience, So when we do these things, I want people to feel it. That's the shamanic thing. To work with a shamanic tool, which I believe to be a real shaman, it's like a skill set. You're building a powerful skill set, or at least that's how the ancients approached it. And I think that the first thing you got to do is have the direct experience. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be preached at. I just want to feel it, dude. I just want to know that it works, dude. This ain't real. And so
that's the shamanic experience. I mean, this like providing that direct experience for people. Is that what that
I
is?
think so. I mean, I think it's reciprocal in my gig. So I'm putting this energy out, and like I tell the groups, if you don't feed back, it's not going to work. And just pretty much cueing that gets people into it. They're ready to go. They're ready to do this.
I've seen, at the Contact at the cabin events, I've seen the people, because we jam with you.
Yeah.
I've done the breathing, like we did it in Colorado. But since then, we've been jamming with you, and I've tried to do it while I'm jamming. I can't.
No. I've tried it too. Almost
Man,
passed
you
out.
will go out. You will go out.
Yeah.
It's for real.
But I've watched the people in the room, and I can see like people having. I mean, it's like they are having a real experience, and very intense. It's cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's great because it's just on the natch. So people, I have no problem with seeking things outside of yourself as tools and things that'll help you. I mean, we like to eat and drink and do all this stuff and bring things into our body, and that's fine. But, there is something that's just there intrinsically, and it's connected to the breath. And I really look at the breath as like this amazing gift, you know?
Yeah.
And when you see life come in and you see life go out, you realize like how important that breath is.
Yes.
And so the breath to me, and believe me, man, I used to make fun of breathing teachers, and now here I am. You know what I mean? So I have to make it cool because I can't be a lame breathing coach. There's really nothing worse than that.
Okay, now breathe in and then exhale slowly.
And you guys know that that's not how it goes.
That's not how it goes. That's right.
So, the jam aspect of it, that's the sparring. That's bringing it to life. And that's the training. So Wim recognized these breathing patterns that would just show up in really stressful situations. Hanging off the side of a mountain in a free climb, having cramps. That's something that he talks about. And then using the breath to calm all of that. So, he can move on. There are, it's always the de-escalation when the stress shows up, right? That's the detachment. That's the zen. That's coming to the center. Right?
I remember when I've done the cold water things and you were coaching, and you're like, okay, like you're going to get in, you're going to have this instant response and your diaphragm's going to start spasming, right? And you were just like, do the breath work like we did. And this was in Colorado when we got in the river there at the hot springs.
Which was cold.
It was freaking cold.
And it was snowing.
Yeah. And I got in the river and exactly what you said. I felt that, my lungs want to go, right?
Yeah.
But I did the breathing like you had taught us in the morning sessions. And instead of letting it go in and out real fast, you breathe in deeply. Now there's still that shudder. But after a couple of breaths, the shudder goes away. And now you're just dealing with that it's freaking cold.
Yeah.
But you're no longer that panic sensation is gone.
Yeah.
Now that you got the breath under control. I thought that was really cool. I mean, it was still freaking cold and it hurt. But getting the panic taken care of just by using that breathing method was really amazing.
Yeah. And that is the first step.
Yeah.
So the first step is adaptation. You want to just be able to sit in the cold, okay? And be able to do it so that now you can begin your exploration.
Yeah.
The exploration is there are this is kind of the interesting thing, okay? And this goes to speak again for building skill sets, and it's also very similar to jujitsu. So inevitably, you're going to spar before you're really ready to spar in jiu-jitsu, meaning that you're not going to have very much technique and you're going to get your beat up a little bit. That's sort of like being in the cold when it's just cold. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm in here now, but it's just cold.
Yeah.
But I know because I've experienced certain things and because I've seen other people put things forward that maybe I can't do yet, but I know are things that can be accomplished.
Yeah.
One thing specifically is being able to detach yourself. And I don't mean just like gritting down and bearing through pain, but I mean completely detach yourself from the feeling of cold, from the feeling of hot. You could think of like really dramatic things like the monks that burn themselves, the self-immolation that they do through in protest, right? They did this in protest in the Vietnam War, right?
Yeah.
The famous Thich Nhat Hanh that just recently passed away, the famous Buddhist monk that actually lit one of these guys, on fire, and they are engulfed in flames for minutes, and they're just sitting in the lotus and in posture, and then they'll raise the arm up to just let
insane.
you know I'm here.
Yeah.
Oh my
you know what I mean? And
Have you seen that? That there's
I think I've seen
a
that.
photograph of it.
the Rage Against the Machine, the old Rage Against the Machine album cover, if you've ever seen that, the very first Rage Against the Machine album cover had that exact picture on
Crazy,
it.
dude. Now, I'll say that when
So I didn't want to go too far. I just wanted to say, because there's a real practical side to this, you know, the thing is that we're playing with states of consciousness. And, you know, when you're doing the breath work, you get that real sense like, oh my God, I could pass out here. Well, there is this weird space between being conscious and being unconscious. And I've experienced it like on the verge of being strangled. You know, when you're being strangled, what that means is your carotid arteries are blocked. Yeah. So the blood's not going up anymore, right? Well, you can dramatically change blood flow through breath work, so much so that you're shifting blood away from like the prefrontal cortex into the survival parts of the brain. So that can start to make you feel extremely lightheaded and like you're going unconscious. It's a very similar effect. And right there, teetering on those fringes, you can go into these spaces where you can disconnect from any sensation, but still be conscious. And it is it's a real balancing act to understand your breath in this way and how to use it. It's a definite.
So that's
skill.
where you're going when you start the breath work. You're trying to get to that edge and hold that as long as you can.
Well, not necessarily like every time, but I'm just saying this is something that can be accomplished.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think people's goals are subjective. So I wouldn't say this is where you're doing.
Okay, gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like I would just say that maybe what I'm trying to do is absolutely walk on those edges to understand how to get out of these states so that I can better teach people this in regards to pain, in regards to really taking this art form to a place where you can understand. And the way to truly understand it is to actually get in the cold, not be great with it at first, and then train post-cold. The post-cold training is really where the gold is at in the beginning, because you can start to then unify these principles, these breathing practices, maybe some motion practices as well, some various things that come together to help you realize, man, that you can generate tremendous amounts of heat in the body. You can control your thermostat in ways that you wouldn't really believe. And even if it's just in the very beginning, just having the experience of the body coming back from the cold, this gives you a lot of insight. But as you do it over and over again, with the right practice, some Jedi shit, you can, basically, you can basically give direction to the energy that is coming through the body. If you want to call it thermogenesis, you could call it all kinds of things, but you'll feel it. And the cold really isolates things around those energies so that you can feel it. It's like no other tool. So I've been after these types of intrinsic energies for a long time. And everything that I'm into, I mean, we could talk pyramids, we could talk whatever, you're right, but I believe that people, the great masters, have understood the real potentials of the human, and at certain points in times, I think we've got it. Like we've got really close, man. Maybe we've gotten so close that we have done things that we don't know about yet.
Yep.
I mean, that's what we like, right?
That's
between guys like us. So, but I definitely think that. There are things that are dormant in us because we have a particular lifestyle now that doesn't call upon the need to understand these things. But I do think that by training these things, one thing that you're going to get is a massive resiliency in your health so that you are stronger in regards to any type of invader. So that's why I look at this like a martial art, because it's an internal battle, but you're able to resist pathogen because you do these things that make you so resilient, the cold being one of them. So the cold doesn't give you a cold. It shouldn't. The cold, should help you build a resilience to the cold on a simple level. On a deeper level, you can take these practices and go, into a space that I can't even fully remark on yet. Because they're just, without speculating, they are, we can turn on switches that I think would blow our minds, man. I'm not gonna, sit here and say we're gonna shoot lightning bolts out our ass, but
William Wallace could.
Right, yes. But at the same time, man, I do think that we can, like Wim demonstrating, and he's not the only one. It's been demonstrated by various monks in practice, consciously raising core body temperature in the presence of something very cold, like being in a snowbank with a wet sheet around the body, and then consciously using the breath and raising the temperature of the body.
Yeah.
So we can do some pretty crazy stuff, man, that's just not being used. Kind of sucks in a weird way, man. Right?
Yeah.
We need to go back. We need like a Jedi school. That's what Randall really needs to get under.
Yeah, we need to have Jedi classes. Yeah. But I have thought about this. I was thinking about bringing this up in the last segment, but you're talking about it now. Like a lot of the, we see these ancient peoples, and they've done. You think about how they had to cross, frozen landscapes, and there's Utsi, the
and
Iceman.
thrive in them.
Yeah, hunt up there alone. And that guy had, I don't know he had tattoos all over him that had meridian points and stuff on his body, like showing that they had done some, that they had done some
Maritime,
studies.
or
Yeah, it's like, it's crazy. This guy was like 5,000 BC or something. So it's way before people thought any of this, they had acupuncture points tattooed onto his body and stuff. So it's like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and he's up there trapped in a glacier, right? That's where they found him, is up in the ice. So like the guy was up there already by himself. Now, he did get murdered. Somebody killed him, but when you're talking about these practices of Wim Hof, he's climbing and doing these crazy things alone and just proving the resiliency of somebody. So you just wonder, like, what were these? And this guy also, Utsi, was old. I think he was in his late 40s maybe, or 50s. So he was that's considered old, at least how we think about it now. But the point is that is it possible that these ancient tribes, there were just certain people and they would just teach you these techniques,
I'm
you need to climb you need to climb through those mountains and cross that ice field. Well, here's here's how you do it. You maintain your core temperature.
The Pueblo people in Colorado, like, they built these cliff dwellings and stuff. They chopped down every tree and drugged them up to the tops of these mountains, and they didn't have pack animals.
No.
I mean, it's like these
they
people
had they had like some skill.
Oh, they had skills.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Some real skills. Like so I had a friend that showed me this old book just called Breath or something like that. And it was about a Lakota Indian practice for breathing and approaching cold water. Like that, and it's like super ancient. I mean, well, these practices are super ancient.
That's what I'm saying.
There's
like,
no,
and they had. I mean, they had to cross rivers in the cold. I mean, like, you're in the cold and you're trudging through the snow, and there's the river, and it's like, well, we got to go. Like, what are you gonna do?
I think mainly what you're gonna do is just be conditioned for it.
Yeah.
Overall,
That's what I mean,
conditioned, and that starts from a young age. It's just like we're talking about, even the natives, in action, like the Native Americans, we know they would basically just be in almost no clothes in certain cases, in the middle of winter. So we have a absolute resiliency, and we cut it off. Believe it or not, I mean, cotton is bad, it's terrible for maintaining heat, right? Cotton makes you cold. Basically, it's a terrible conductor for heat. So when it's like if you get really cold, it's not great to put on cotton. That's like, but we always have it on, right? And we do a lot of strange things, I feel like, just out of convenience. And that, whereas the indigenous would have just been cultivating it day after day after day. I mean, if you're that person who's outside day after day after day, you really build something. So when it's time to go into the cold river, it's like, it's nothing. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. Yeah. It's you've got these things that
But they loved hot springs.
Oh, absolutely. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
That's like healing waters, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with experiencing either one, and absolutely hot water lets you relax. But interestingly enough, so if you go into the cold and you get calm and adapted, when you get out, you can really see the shift of your body going. You can feel it going from a sympathetic nature, which is fight and flight, into a parasympathetic nature, which is like rest and relax, feed and breathe. This idea of, of feeling like really balanced, like when you come home, when you just feel like you can let stress go and you're in that parasympathetic nature. You can really experience that in a very short window, like a tiny little window of you getting into the cold, getting out, your body starts to warm, you start to relax, and you just feel yourself go through
I
this.
absolutely remember that.
Yeah,
From the Colorado.
Yeah.
It's like being in the river was like this, this struggle, and it was like trying to get control of the breath and everything and then relax. And I remember at some point in the river feeling like the outside of my skin on my arms feeling almost like hot. It was like, I don't know if it was a mental thing. It was just like, okay, it's like burning up in a way. But then after a little bit longer, my core started feeling like I'm actually getting cold.
Yes.
And so I remember you telling me, well, you should probably get out then.
Yeah.
So I get out, and then suddenly I have this amazing feeling, and I'm standing in the snow, like it's snowing on me, and I'm standing out there in nothing but my shorts, and I just felt awesome. Like there was just this amazing feeling.
Yeah, man, it's that dopamine, those endorphins, all those things hit
like
you,
max adrenaline.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, I was like, okay, I'm cold again. Get back in the hot springs. It's like,
I also remember that, sitting in that water and feeling my arms shutting down and my legs turning off and like everything going into the core. And I was like recognizing this from studying, hypothermia. And I'm like, yep, my hypothalamus is telling my entire body, like, too late, you're going to die. Turn it all off. Forget about it. Because then you start feeling the heat because the blood rushes back out. You're like, ah. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, and that's so with the practice, what we do, we internalize that through, you can just do it through some basic visualization. Everything is going to come to the core, so we try to consciously bring it to the core. Does that make sense, right? So we know it's going there, so let's be conscious about it and let's see if we can affect that.
Okay.
So you really visualize being cut off from the extremities.
Yeah.
Like the arms and the legs are not there. Really when you're, let's say, in the plunge, in the midst of being in the cold, getting adapted. And then coming out of the plunge, when you go into the post-cold training, you want to, imagine that heat moving away from the core back out into the extremities. What naturally happens is you get this effect called the after drop when you come out of cold water, where the cold blood from the extremities tries to move to the core, and that makes you feel the shivers. That makes you feel because your core body temperature is dropping through that mixing
your
of the blood.
Your extremities feel extremely hot from all the core blood going out, and that cold blood is coming in and making you it's weird.
So you can give that energy a direction. And you can absolutely train shivers out. There's no question about that. Shivers is just your body trying to figure out how to get warm.
Yeah.
So when you actually kind of have a direction for it, then, and it's not kind of, you have a direction for it with what we do. We're giving you a particular, and I think it's a very ancient approach that's tried and true. You see it in all kinds of martial arts and yoga practices, and we bring that into the practice. So today I did a fundamentals workshop. Tomorrow I'm doing an advanced workshop, and I'm one of the few people that actually teaches us a workshop of this nature. And it's, we really get to dig in and work the tools that they learn today. And
let's talk about that after the break.
Okay.
Tell us what you're doing with the advanced workshop.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. We'll be right back with Brandon Powell and more of his music here in the break.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen, Brothers of the Serpent podcast, diving into a very interesting subject here that we have. We haven't really gone down these avenues very often, so it's a great pleasure to have you here, Brandon, and to explore these topics with you, man. But I just found out during the break that you're good old buddies with Frank.
That's right, Frank, longtime supporter of the show, admin in the Discord.
Frank is a legend.
Hell yes, he is.
Straight up. I mean, in my mind, when I first met Frank, I lived in a little town in South Carolina outside of Charlotte. And Charlotte was a totally different city back in the early 90s than it is now. Completely different. And there was a pretty cool little music scene there. And there were several bands maybe not several, but there were a few bands specifically in the scene that really made it up. But then there was a lot of activity. There was a lot of people trying to put out music. And I had a kick-ass little band when I was 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And we played all over Charlotte in that time, and we got a lot of help from different people. One of the people was Frank and his band at the time. And so Frank was legendary because, these guys were a little older than me. So yeah, Frank, you're older than me. But
nailed him to the wall.
but Frank was ripping on the guitar, and and he had the air 100% of the real deal rock star. I mean, just
Frank,
kicking ass, just shredding it, and just hair just blowing. You know what I mean? And just amazing. But he They were really, really good to us, and we were kids. So we were getting away with a lot of stuff, man. We were 18 years old in bars, playing.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like older brothers who were trying to get us into a lot of shit, and at the same time, looking out for us. So it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and those were great times. And I'm still in connection with some of those guys many years later. We still, so it's great to have things come full circle there with Frank.
Yeah, it's a small world, right?
Yeah, very much.
That's right. Yeah, so I found this out when I was just real quick, and then we'll go back to the other stuff. But I found this out. Brandon and I were at the Magic on the Mountain event, and we were staying in the same. We had a big Airbnb for all the hosts, and we were staying in there one night. We're hanging out or whatever, and I was on the Discord, and Frank knew I was there, and Frank was just like, tell Brandon that Frank from, what did he say? Frank
Buster
from
Rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Says hello. And so I'm like, I typed in, I'm like, is he going to know what I'm talking about? And he's like, I think so. So I said it to Brandon, and he looks at me, Frank? And I'm like, yeah, Frank says hello. And he's like,
Dude, that's
Frank's a freaking badass. I'm like, okay, he does know. And then he told me a shitload of stories.
That's
It was awesome.
wild, dude. That's so cool, man.
It is really cool.
We had good times back then. I mean, frightful for anybody's parents, but we had great times back then. It was
Tell
a
us
lot
the
of fun.
craziest Frank story you got.
Oh,
Just nail and dox this guy.
Not gonna do it, Frank. Not gonna do it. God
dang it,
the thing is, man, is that there were a lot of warehouse parties, and Frank will know exactly what I'm talking about when I say this. And there, things I know don't need to be shared necessarily.
All right.
But
That's cool.
I will say this, man. It's awesome to see how, from a time like that, we still share a like-mindedness in things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really cool, man.
Frank's a great guy. So
He is, man.
Can't wait to meet you, buddy.
yeah, one of these days we'll
Yeah,
meet
when
up.
are we gonna get you out, man?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. All right. So advanced classes. What do you teach in those? What does that mean?
So it just means working the techniques, which to me, again, this is what it's all about. The direct experience, being able to apply the things you would learn from a fundamentals workshop, which are the various breathing patterns that we do, and then how to take it a bit further. It can be a little bit overwhelming, without having a few sessions. And really, that's what makes the retreats really awesome, is that we can deep dive and go even further.
And these are breath sessions?
Well, really in regards to like putting all the tools together.
Okay.
We're getting there more and more with the contacts,
Okay.
But
I've noticed they're getting more intense. as
yeah,
you do it.
yeah, and we're gonna bring it all together, in the I would say in the right setting. Maybe not specifically with Randall, but you know what I mean? Just because the space isn't there, man. In regards, we need a day of immersion in nature. And then you can really have a good foothold on what to do for a while. And then you could start adding things to the practice, that take it even further. What I try to do in the fundamentals and advanced courses that I teach in a weekend is give people as many tools as they can handle, and then let people work it. Don't. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, I feel like the real work for anything is done when you're like alone.
Yeah.
And
When you're working on it yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a lot like art too.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you can only have so much technique before it's overwhelming. It doesn't mean anything. You need to be able to commit it, right? So you never start off playing the greatest symphony. You start playing slow and you build up, right? And the same thing goes for what we're trying to do in this practice. You need the reps. You need to put in the drills, the practice over and over again, and then it'll go somewhere. It will get lift. And then once that happens, then we can get more insight into how to guide the process.
This is inspiring me, man. Like I don't know. I recognize this from my experience in music. You know,
it's all
like
the same.
It's like playing a guitar, right? You see somebody playing, and it's like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I want to do this, and then you try, and you're like, you know. And then if you really
want it,
you want it, and if you really apply yourself, the next thing that happens is you suck, and your hand hurts really bad because you're pushing it. You know, your fingers all hurt, and you're getting blisters, and you're just like, yeah. And then that happens for a while, and then suddenly you have this like breakthrough, where you're like, oh man, I can fucking jam.
Yes.
You know, and then that is like this amazing feeling. And that's what I'm hearing from you on a physical, like something with your body, like your physical state. And, you know, I don't know. It's very inspiring. So I'm like, all right, I got to do this.
Yeah,
every day.
Yeah.
It's like the breathing or the cold?
I was like, well, I'm just going to start with like
that's what I figured, because like if we're going to be doing this soon in Montana, I was thinking like, well, I just need to start with the breathing myself like at least a couple of times a week, so that when I get
just
there,
go stand in the freezer up at the house. Just, you know, I'm not even kidding. Wim has a freezer unit that's big enough for him to run little laps inside of. So, you know, and he trains in the thing. You know, so the cold air is actually really good for training. He's done lots of training in freezer units. Lots of training. He really has.
It's like bands practicing in storage units.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like that. It's like the lo-fi, you know, but extremely rewarding, you know, because he's demonstrated a lot. And that's the thing, man. You don't get good.
I gotta do this, man.
You don't get good until you are, you know, getting extreme. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, if you really want to get good at something, you know, you have to be annoying. You have to walk around your house without ever putting your guitar down, just playing it everywhere you go all the time. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to be good with this, you know, there are multiple ways to train it, but there are just some real fundamental, you know, things that you can do, like the breathing and the cold. I mean, they're just really simple, very direct, easy to use tools. Shamanism comes from the coldest places. That's where the word comes from, right? You know, it comes, it's a Tunguskan word that comes from the, you know, like northern, like Siberian regions, right? And it may have the same derivative, like shamanism might have the same things like shamu or shampoo, you know? But the shaman, you know, that the idea of the shaman is, especially one in the cold, was that it was that type of deprivation, you know, the states of deprivation that you might find in fasting, which really, you know, there's an amazing connection between fasting and cold water. So when fasted, you will generate a lot more heat. And
so can you do these things together? Like you fast for a couple of days and then jump in the ice bath?
Well, you don't even have to fast for a couple of days. It could just be like you know, maybe you're on a 12-hour fast or something at that point, you know, but you're going to have great benefit from the fast in relation to the cold. So there's a lot of good science and study around on this. We can maybe attach some like show notes or whatever that goes into a lot of the science. But there's a famous astronaut named Ray Cronise, I believe is how you say his name, and he you know, he has all of this information on fasting, and I was really interested in Ray's work independently of anything with Wim Hof. I was just looking at some of his work in fasting, and then come to find out that he had studied with Wim at some point, you know, and this was like a, you know, very respected, you know, NASA astronaut, right, who did a 40-day fast, I believe, that was documented and studied. We can go a long time without food, like a really long time. That doesn't necessarily mean it's great, but we can definitely go a very long time without food.
And it can help you achieve like some of the stuff you're talking about, right? I mean, like we see this in ancient texts. Biblical ones in particular, people are going to be familiar with all the 40-day fasts in the desert.
Absolutely.
You know, that these prophets would do. And then they come back and they're like, God told me everything's going to be destroyed, right? They had some kind of vision.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the shamanic thing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and... I think most religious stories, to me, I mean, like, Christ or Muhammad, or these are very shamanic stories at their core. The birth and birth and death and rebirth.
Yeah.
Which is just the observation of nature, right? I mean, but at the same time, it's such a powerful story for the human mind. There is something about that that's archetypical, right? Mm-hmm. Something that it's like a calling to that particular story, and so the shaman travels away from reality and comes back with something, right? Or whether it be insight into, and I think I mean we're so disconnected from, like, at least me personally, I feel so disconnected from anything like this. But if you were hunting and fishing and doing these things, nonstop all the time, and you're moving your tribe around for best location, and you're, I think you would get insight into all that stuff. Like, yeah, we should go fish over here. And then all of a sudden you're very successful. It's like, I just think it's a being very in tune. But when you get into the idea of exploring consciousness, this gets into really murky waters when you're, I mean, it really does. It gets into murky waters when you're trying to talk about it, because, this is maybe I think, like, when I was a kid, I saw like a Polynesian mask, and it just, like, I don't know, something triggered in me where I felt maybe began to even romanticize, like, this way of living connected directly, deeply to nature. There was something about that, even as a kid, just recognizing that there's something that I really liked about that. And so in studying the indigenous, you realize, like, in all hunter-gatherer cultures all around the world, shamanism arises.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So in all hunter-gatherer cultures, there's a form of shamanism that comes out. I mean, they might not call it shamanism, but it is this same phenomena of...
Yeah, there's a pattern to it that we can recognize now when we look at it.
Absolutely.
That's the job you give to the weird guy.
Maybe so, and in some cases, yes, but it's also like a custodian.
Yeah.
Right, so
I'm being flippant, but yeah,
I know,
totally right,
but I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing with the weird guy. I mean, I hate to say it, but I've kind of felt like the weird guy most of my life.
Yeah.
What is he doing up there on that mountain?
Yeah.
What is he doing?
What? I don't know.
It's never, that's not a really comfortable place to be, the weird guy either.
Yeah. Well, let me tell this short story real quick, because this kind of ties in with what you're saying about getting back with nature. It's not quite nature. We're doing agriculture, so that's not really nature.
Why not? That's exactly nature.
we're managing,
we're manipulating.
Yeah, it's like a lot of management. Like, it's not the same thing as walking around in the woods. But but this is what happened, and this was really cool. And I've been thinking about this for a while. People who listen to the podcast will know that I spent a month or so working on. We have like 400 peach trees out there. Okay, so we have an orchard, and my job was to trim those trees, right? And so I was doing it one at a time by hand, trimming the trees. And there's a particular kind of shape that they need, and the shape, it was crazy. The shape requires a 4-dimensional kind of thinking, because there's this 3-dimensional shape you want the tree to have now, but you also have to think about what it's going to do So you're looking at the tree, and every tree is different. You're looking at the tree and imagining, what is it going to be in the future? What was it in the past, the last time I did this? How is it reacting to what I'm doing? And here's my goal. I have this abstract image in my head of what I want it to be, and I'm also dealing with time, going in both directions, and doing this over and over and over for hundreds of trees turned into like this meditative practice.
Yes.
God. To the point to where at the end of doing this job, I would go home, and when I'm laying down to go to sleep at night, all I could see were tree branches blowing back and forth in front of me, and shapes and things growing, and it was crazy. Like, you know, it was like being in meditation. You get out there in the field and you start working on it, and then suddenly you get into this groove, and like suddenly you're seeing the trees through time.
How did it make you feel?
It was great. I mean, it was incredibly peaceful and healing, and you know, now it was agriculture, but I'm dealing with nature. But there was something about the 4-dimensional thinking that just puts you in a kind of just enough of an altered state. Even though I'm working, I'm out there with shears, you know, I'm trimming pieces off and moving stuff around. But so it's physical labor, but what that might be part of it, because that's kind of what you're talking about. So there's a lot of physical labor. I'm out in the sun, you know. And there's motion everywhere because it's very windy there. So that's the other thing that's happening is the tree's constantly in motion. And so I'm looking at it and saying, okay, the sunlight's doing this. And if I remove that, I have to look at where it is. And if I take that out, is sunlight going to hit everything, even when it's moving around? What do I want it to be in the future? What was it in the past? And this turned into this almost a spiritual kind of experience.
And every tree is different. So it's like this new puzzle every time, a new puzzle, a new puzzle, a new puzzle.
It was amazing.
That's awesome.
I have the same thing with the grapes because like I spent a lot of time pruning the grapes, and then of course like part of that job is to go out and watch them and look at them and see how they're growing in the season and see how they react to the trimming. And there's so many, like you're saying, like you're watching it respond to that shaping. And then the next year you're like, okay, here's what happened. Here's what, you know, and so here's the strategy. And then you execute that strategy, and then you watch it again, and like been doing this since 2016.
So it's a long-term process.
It's a long-term process, and to see it, and then, but the act of doing it becomes like this, almost like a trance state.
Yes.
It's weird. It's very interesting, like a meditative state, like you said.
It was very meditative, and I could tell because I would come home.
It would be interesting to study the brain waves. There, and know if you're getting into like a deep like theta state.
It seems like it, yeah.
You know what you're achieving in that space, because I imagine that it is you know, programmed in us to be caretakers, and to work with nature, and I think that there's absolutely a symbiotic connection there, and so you know, when you're creating health in something, right, and so that it prospers, so that you prosper, you know, you know, there's this beneficial thing where it's and fruit. Something about just having your hands in the dirt, and then also getting that reward of the nourishment, the fruit. I mean, it's.
But it kind of it reminded me of what you said, like when indigenous people are moving around in their landscape, and they, you know, a lot of these cultures, their entire worldview was rooted, I guess is the right, no pun intended, rooted in the landscape and the shapes of things. Like this mountain has this story and does this, that, this lake over here. And, you know, they would tell these stories about the landscape. And I was just imagining how you would say, you know, like, we're going to go fish over there. Like, in other words, you become, if you pay that much attention to it and you're moving around in it all the time.
And there's the 4-dimensional aspect of like, well, I know where the sun is right now, and then what constellations are in the sky, and I know what that was like last year and the year before, and I know what's happening, so we need to move south.
That's right. We're gonna, like he said, let's go fish over there.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you get into that same symbiotic, almost like trance state with the entire landscape.
And these types of rhythms are. They take a form of patience, like you were saying. Like you can't just like go up to a plant and be like, well, I'm going to just do this and then I'm going to get... No, this is like this is years
Yeah.
Right.
Nature
So it
definitely
requires this
patience.
You have to slow down and like observe and make sure you go back and observe and again. And so there's these huge patterns to it and this patience to absorb that pattern and to recognize smaller patterns.
And then the
within it.
repetition, like you were talking
Yeah.
about, there's repetition and you get good, right?
That's right.
You know, and you learn and you get good and you learn. And like, so for me doing the trees, by the time I get to the end of the orchard, I'm like, I should go back and start from the beginning. I'm way better at it now than I was now that I've done 400 trees.
And that's a great way to get to. I mean, like, especially if you, if you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Right. It's, you should be better at the end. You should be better. Right. It shouldn't have been this thing that destroys you or breaks you down. It should you should feel stronger, benefited from the whole process.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It just means that I have to.
That's thriving.
I have to alternate year by year the direction I go through the orchard.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. Because like if I start over here at tree 1, and then by the time I get to tree 400 at the other end of the orchard, I've gotten way better by the time I get to tree 400. So the next year, tree 1 is last year's tree 400. And then I get better going in the other direction. So I kind of spread out
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that like that tree 1 is not always the tree that I have the least amount of ability with.
Right.
Yeah.
I've had just to
That's
add
really
to this,
cool, man.
Yeah.
a couple of like glimpses in these. Like one time I was fishing on the river, and it's an all day. You're in a tube and you're tubing down this river and you're hitting the fishing holes and like we do this
good stuff.
Yeah, it's a family thing. Anyway, I had this amazing like connection with nature one time in this river because there's like you have this little channel of water, and on one side there's a cliff, like a sheer cliff of stones 60 feet high or something, whatever it is, and then the other side is the gravel bar and nothing's growing. And then, so way far away from the gravel bar is this forest that's like trying to reach out and take back this gravel bar where all the life had been swept away from it at some distant point in the past. And then the cliff is like this sheer face that has no growth. And then at the top, the life is like coming down, like reaching. So it's like from both sides, all this green is like trying to get to this water. And then in the water, of course, is all the life, and so like the birds and everything is just, and I'm seeing this thing, and of course it's in a curve, and I had this vision like, oh my God, like seeing this thing through time, creating the landscape, and then the life exploiting what was there, right? The water and all that, and that was like. I don't know how to explain it really, but it was in this enlightening connection with nature that I felt on this one particular trip. It was like an epiphany that hit me. And another one was,
it's amazing how nature provides those types of moments, and yeah, I mean, this is maybe to me the most interesting thing. We were talking about this before the podcast, is when things sync up,
Yes, absolutely.
And we have the ability to go through life in this autonomic way where we don't recognize the syncopation or the synchronicity that's occurring in everything, right? But you can explore the synchronicities very deeply if you want to. I think there are a lot of tools that can open you up, but they're all sort of oriented in the same way, which is to explore consciousness and the synchronicity, that could lead to, just being the right place, right time, everything occurs, or it could be one of those, kind of weird things where you're thinking about somebody and they call you, or, there's all kinds of, there's all kinds of little things, but I mean, it can get so profound. And, if I was to talk about maybe, a moment in my life that, really just changed so many things for me was going through a particular experience with a group of individuals, like-minded folks who were looking for the same thing, and we experienced a unity in mind that it just could not have occurred without the right alchemy, with the people and the whole thing, right? You know, it was this powerful experience, induced experience that led me to believe that consciousness is behind all of this, you know. And I will argue for consciousness over materialism, for instance. And the consciousness that you can experience, you know, with another being, a shared moment, right, where you can have something that can be so deep. I can only imagine that if you were embedded in nature all the time and going through these things with each other, like how, you know, you'll start to not know where you end and someone else begins, you know? And in the experience that I had, I believe that it is so profound and yet so like such a birthright to the human being. Like we're all meant to have an experience like what I'm talking about. And I believe that the ancients were completely obsessed with it, completely obsessed with this very thing, the synchronicity, and trying to understand like how to capture moments that could be, you know, that could be enhanced in a way that might be worth building a pyramid around. You know what I mean? You know, like I do think that we have the ability with the right alchemy, and what I mean is, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to go after these types of experiences, but there's some tried and true ways, right?
There's physical ways, there's psychedelics for sure.
There's some tried and true ways. So if you are to, you know, go about using one of the tried and true ways, I think at a certain point, there's a space that you have a breakthrough. And in that breakthrough, depending on how many times you do it and depending on maybe your approach, and I would say here again, there is a way to create a high art form around approaching this.
Yep.
And I believe that there were people who were societies of people who were completely enraptured in this.
Yeah.
And I believe you can sing into reality. And you can orient yourself to a state of consciousness that transcends our normal walking day, every day, you know, grind it out sort of mindset that we have to have. And in those spaces, you know, and I do believe this is peak experience here. In these spaces, I think you can orient your whole existence to something that is bigger than yourself. And, you know, then you are in this small form because you realize that you are truly a part of everything. And, you know, that's hard to hold.
That's what I was going to say.
When you're not there.
Yeah.
And that's why we practice.
That's what I was going to say.
That's why we practice.
I've been that. I've felt that, like, where you're like, okay, you know, you're connected to everything.
Yeah.
You're a part of all of it. There's a huge system.
Yeah. Absolutely. There is
and you can't hold on to it. And you have to work at it. You have to put in the work at some point.
Yeah, well,
to try to get at least some lasting aspect to stick with you, because you can lose it. I mean, you can totally lose it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go back.
Yeah.
You got to go back if you're, I mean, there's a reason we show up to church every Sunday, you know what I mean? It's like, you got to go back and do the reps. That's the work to me. I mean, so maybe it is the weirdo that gets chosen to go do this kind of thing, or maybe it's the person with courage, or maybe it's someone who is destined for it. I mean, I don't know. You can look at it in all kinds of different ways, but I think that we have suppressed a lot of that type of connection in our reality. And so in all of the things that I play with, whether it's the music and the vocalizations in the music, or the jujitsu, or any of the stuff, man, the Wim Hof Method, being with my kids, cooking food, I don't know, I could just everything I do. I try to look at it like there is a way to be sort of, more deeply connected to these things. And it was the profoundness of those peak experiences that I was really interested in for a period of time, like really heavily interested in, pushing the bounds of my mind so that I could, find something. I don't know exactly what I was looking for, but what I came back with was that there is an ability to manifest your own reality if you're operating in a way that is oriented towards these things. But, so in other words, there are tried and true tools that you can use that are provided to us in nature, because I believe that we have this direct connection. I don't think it's arbitrary. I don't think that it's random.
Nature
I
has
think
agency.
Yes, I believe that it is. It offers us simple ways to better understand ourselves, so that we can manifest the reality that is. And I'm not saying you can make $1 million fall out of the sky. It's not secret kind of nonsense like that, right? But what I mean is that we can better navigate in a way that is very healthy, that is very cohesive and conducive to it's a very conducive lifestyle to that symbiotic thing that you were talking about, man. I mean, I know I'm being like all circuitous about this, but I mean that having connection with nature, I really think, is what this is all about.
Yeah.
And how profound that is, like how deep we can go. I think we've lost a lot of that personally. And I think all the tools that I'm interested in are just about bringing you back to that and realizing that in that, that connection, you can navigate life so much better. Period.
And what's more natural than the breath?
Right.
Going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beginning. I mean, because whenever you're in need, let's say, one thing I try to talk about in my workshops is using the breath to help you grieve. Because, when you experience grief, it is quite often out of your control, right? If you're experiencing something that is profoundly sad and moving, your body gives you a response, and it's induced from the mind, right? I mean, you have these things, and I think it speaks to the calling of the body also towards things, right? I don't think it's all just mind in that way. I think the body is very important, and the body craves things. And, we can crave people. We can crave the need for substance, whatever, right? We can crave all kinds of stuff. But the sadness, when it comes over us, will take control of the breath. And if you learn to operate the breath in those moments, you can navigate that sadness without running away from it. And this helps you process.
Yeah.
And process is what we're after. The real result is being able to utilize these energies as something that can be very beneficial to us. So yes, pain, but pain can be a great teacher in that regard. And so using the breath will help you move through the process and help it not get stuck. And that's something that I can't speak on enough in regards to using the breath as a way to deal with stress. To try and process the stress in the moment, as opposed to suppressing it or, repressing it or something.
Wow. Well, man,
that was making me think of real quick. It's like an analogy, our relationship to nature or the universe is like this. It's both life-giving and also a struggle that's trying to choke us out. So it's like jujitsu is an analogy for humanity's relationship to nature.
Yeah, that's
what I mean.
I'm going to use that.
Are you going to use that?
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I like that a lot.
Because it is. I mean, it's
that's great.
All this stuff we're talking about. It's like life throws these moves at you that you're just, you gotta. It's a struggle, but at the same time, if you can overcome it, you have this. I don't know. It's like,
well,
really
when
cool.
you struggle a little bit, then you find out. So if you practice things that are harder than what you're going to deal with, then it's easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
all right.
It's been a pleasure, fellas.
Yeah, man.
yeah, man. It's
Thank you
been
so
awesome.
much for coming on the show. Tell people where they can find your stuff and all that.
I want to mention too that the last song is available on YouTube. It's called "And the Word Was Made" sketch.
That's right. I'll put that in the show notes as well.
The channel is On My Way to Ghost. So
That's right.
Yeah, check that song out. It's badass.
So is there somewhere people can find your work or get a hold of you or?
Yeah, man. So right now, I have like my little personal Instagram page or whatever, which I'm trying to get better at social media stuff. But we have I'm Brandon Powell 396 on Instagram. But we're doing a Patreon page, and we're gonna be releasing a bunch of more stuff onto YouTube. A lot of stuff in regards specifically to the breath coaching.
Okay.
So with the music overlaid, and support us if you can, or just take advantage of the free content. And my page is on PHYR onfire.com, and we're also on YouTube under the same thing.
Okay.
So,
On Fire, PHYR.
Is that going to be the name of the Patreon, or is the Patreon already set up?
No, that's going to be the name.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it'll all be there.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again so much, bro.
Man, it was
a
awesome.
pleasure.
Yeah. Thank
Great
you
to
guys.
finally get you out here in the cube.
Dude, man, what
Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful place it is out here. I really like it out here.
Oh,
man.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And all you listeners, you know all the things. We love you guys.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work and breathe.